Hello and welcome. I'm Cameron Carey of Communique, and I'm here to bring you the November workshop of the 2021 Northern Virginia Housing Expo. This year marks our 11th year of offering education, resources, and connections for people who are looking to buy or rent in Northern Virginia, or improve their financial outlook as they do. You'll find exhibits, free individualized financial coaching, links to resources, and lots of workshops on lots of topics on our website at novahousingexpo.org. We encourage you to visit often. New exhibitors and online webinars are added regularly throughout the year. Today's workshop is titled Housing Options for Older Adults, and our presenter knows a lot about the topic. Rachel Coates is Director of Arlington County's Agency on Aging and Disability Services for DHS. Today, Rachel will share information on the various housing options local seniors encounter and need to consider as part of their future housing needs. While this webinar is pre-recorded, we have included some topics or some frequently asked questions that Rachel will answer at the end of the webinar. Take it away, Rachel.
Thank you, Cameron. And thank you all for being here. I plan to share some information about housing options for older adults and the many resources that are available to help you or your loved one in this journey. Over the next 2 decades, we know that the proportion of older adults in the United States will grow dramatically. By 2030, 1 in 5 Americans will be aged 65 or older. We know that many of these individuals want to remain in their own homes, a concept known as aging in place. In fact, 90% of adults aged 65 and older hope to stay in their homes. But to do so, many of whom will need some services and supports to remain safe and independent in their home and community. A few resources to consider are thinking about the network and the resources around you that will help with this. Transportation, is it easily accessible? Do you have means of transportation? Safety of a neighborhood, home modifications that make homes accessible, affordability of home and resources for services, looking at maintenance, and many of these things we'll talk about throughout this presentation. One of the first stops and kind of the one-stop shops for many in the community are your local agencies on aging, also known as AAAs. Agencies on aging are nationwide. There are over 600 throughout the United States and 25 in Virginia. I work in Arlington County's Aging and Disability Services Division, where our Agency on Aging is housed within our local government. All AAAs play a key role in the planning, developing, coordinating, and delivering a wide range of services and supports to adults aged 60 and above, persons with disabilities, as well as caregivers. Agencies on aging know the older adults in their communities. They know about the resources, and they are a great resource for older adults and for planning for aging and aging services. All AAAs offer 5 core services under the Federal Older Americans Act. Those services are elder rights, that's abuse prevention, and programs like the Long-Term Care Ombudsman, services for individuals in long-term care settings like assisted livings and nursing homes. Supports to caregivers, this can be caregiver support, training, education, and respite services. Nutrition programs, things like home delivered meals, congregate nutrition programs, and nutrition education. Health and wellness programs, many of which are evidence-based programs like falls prevention, chronic disease self-management classes, and a range of other health and wellness programs and services. And then one of the biggest sort of bulk services that agencies on aging offer are under the umbrella of supportive services. This can include aging and disability resource centers that provide information and referrals to other services and supports, in-home services to help with things like instrumental activities of daily living, like housekeeping, laundry services, meal preparation, homemaker services, transportation, case management, home modification, and legal services. Not sure what just happened there. So every year, our local agency on aging, in partnership with our Commission on Aging, we survey our older adults in the community and ask what matters most. Year after year, housing is a primary theme that we hear that matters most to older adults. Housing affordability, inclusive housing, looking at mixed use, looking at services available so that people have choice to stay and remain in their own home. Questions about downsizing. When do I transition from a single family home to maybe a condo or a smaller apartment? Do I rent versus own? Questions like, what are the wait lists for different types of housing? Is sharing housing an option? Is accessibility of my home modifications? How do I know about the services that are available? And every year we hear aging in place. The preference and desire to age in place is something that matters very, very much to our older adults. And so how do communities respond? One way that the World Health Organization and AARP developed for communities to respond is creating livable communities. Livable communities are win-win for all ages and people of all stages. Livable communities are safe and secure. They offer affordable, appropriate housing, transportation options, supportive services, and they benefit people of all ages and all stages. So there's really a win for communities through livable or age-friendly communities. In Arlington and many communities in our surrounding region, as well as in the nation, we're creating and building age-friendly, livable communities for all. Age-friendly communities look at 8 domains, many of which were mentioned just a moment ago: housing, transportation, civic engagement, looking at areas that we can identify goals that we hope to achieve and objectives to achieve them. In Arlington, we developed an age-friendly action plan. Our Commission on Aging and our age-friendly task force, I helped to identify these goals based on community listening sessions, based on a study of research, of talking with other subject matter experts within the respective domains, and created this resource, which is available on our website. For housing, we identified 3 goals that we really want to target to make Arlington an even more age-friendly community. Those goals are advancing policies and programs that focus on affordability and accessibility, promoting supportive services and different tools that help older adults age in place, provide choice, and ensure safety and independence and autonomy. And finally, promoting the development of affordable assisted living. And I'll talk more about these goals in just a moment. These goals are for Arlington, but we know that many other communities are facing very similar challenges as they relate to housing. In fact, US Aging, formerly N4A, published a report on housing and homelessness among older adults. This is a trend that sadly is increasing nationwide. Some of the challenges that were identified as most significant to older adults include the affordability and availability of rental housing, the length of wait lists for housing options, and again, the affordability of those of affordable options, housing. Homes that need repairs and modifications and the costs for those modifications, and a shortage of apartments and housing options that allow pets. So now that we've talked a little bit about some of the housing challenges and some of the housing needs, let's talk about the continuum of care, of the different housing options available to older adults. We'll go into each of these more specifically in a moment. We'll talk about private residences, aging in place with supportive services, lifestyle communities. Those can be traditionally sort of in setting a specific age, and communities for adults of a certain age and above. I think one of the ones that always comes to mind is sort of the villages in Florida. Life plan communities, also known as continuing care retirement communities or CCRCs, independent living residences, assisted living, and nursing homes. The first one is a private residence. This can be a single family home, a duplex, a condo, a wide range of housing options, but it's something that an individual owns. It's your personal home, a private residence. Some of the challenges that we see specifically in the Northern Virginia area is a high cost of living for someone who has purchased their home sometimes decades prior. And while the property taxes have increased, older adults may often be on a fixed income, and being able to afford the property taxes may be a challenge. Many communities offer programs like the Real Estate Tax Relief Program. In Arlington County, this is a program that provides tax exemption and or a deferral of one's real estate taxes for qualified homeowners who are ages 65 and above, individuals with disabilities, and there are eligibility requirements for this program, but this is one way that many communities has identified a tool to help older adults remain in their homes. Other resources include home safety checks. Oftentimes, your local fire department, care managers, occupational therapists, and aging in place specialists, also known as CAPS, offer programs that will conduct a home safety check, looking at the features of the home and ensuring safety for the homeowners. There are programs that include rental assistance programs and subsidies. These are mainly for renters, but they could be programs like Housing Choice Voucher, also known as Section 8 programs. Locally, we have a program called Housing Grant, where they provide for qualified individuals subsidies with affording rent payments. There are what are known as home renovation programs. Sometimes there are state tax credits that offer a way to help subsidize the cost of home modifications, and organizations like Rebuilding Together, who provide repairs and renovations and offer things like accessibility features through programs like their Rebuilding Together Express or RT Express, with a focus on accessibility related to aging in place. And then there are resources that help aid with universal design features. In the picture shown here, you'll notice that there is a no-step entry to access the home. That's something known as universal design. I'm not an architect. My husband is, though, and so I did help to pick his brain a little bit, but I am not the expert. I defer to the experts when it comes to universal design. Universal design is a movement by architect that started with architect Ron Mace, and it's an approach to designing products and environments that can be used by all people. This means that it accommodates individuals' preferences and ability through equitable use, so that no step entry to the door is helpful for someone who may be using a walker or crutches, or it could be for a mom or dad pushing a stroller. There's flexibility in the use. It means that the use is easy to understand for everyone, regardless of the person's experience, their knowledge, language, or concentration levels. It's simple and intuitive, perceptible information. Again, back to it communicates the information easily to any user. There's a tolerance for error, which means that it minimizes the adverse consequences or actions of what would be maybe considered a misuse. There's low physical effort. A lot of times this could be pushing a button to open a door, looking at sort of the no-touch lights in different rooms, and then the size and the space for the approach and use. So looking at reach, at how easy it is to use. We'll often see this in bathrooms with the different types of grab bars, no step entries into the showers. One great resource for this is AARP's Home Fit Guide. The link is there on the slide, and this is a great resource for implementing universal design features in every house of someone's home. But it's not just our homes that we're modifying. As we think about aging in place and wanting to stay in the community, it's also knowing about what community resources and support services may be available. One great resource, and the link is there, is the National Council on Aging, or NCOA, offers a great tool called a benefits checkup. This is an online resource that anyone can go to, enter your zip code, your address, some specifics. Are you an older adult? Are you a caregiver? What types of services are you looking for? And the benefits checkup will provide you with a list of local resources. Many community resources exist across the range of services and supports. There are things like adult day programs that provide socialization, activities, meals for adults, and also provide support for caregivers. Many communities have programs called villages. In Arlington, we have Arlington Neighborhood Village that provides socialization, activities, and services like transportation, yard maintenance and care, services that help to provide socialization, but also keep individuals in their communities, in their homes. There are geriatric care managers and move managers that help connect individuals and families to a range of services. They can help when there may need to be a transition from living in the home to maybe relocating to a higher level of care. Move managers and real estate specialists can often specialize in things like downsizing. If there is a need for a deep cleaning, sometimes when we live in homes for decades, we can accumulate a lot of stuff, and move managers, real estate specialists can help with things like that downsizing or decluttering types of services. There are elder law attorneys who specialize in working with older adults, of helping with the legal process of looking at selling homes, setting up wills, and other decisions, important decisions that are necessary to be made as we think about the next steps throughout the aging process. And then there are online resources. The Sourcebook Guide to Retirement Living, or Positive Aging, has a range of resources for the DC, Virginia, Maryland, kind of DMV metro area. Senior Navigator is a Virginia resource that offers different types of resources and services and how to connect to those various options and providers. And then the Elder Care Locator is a national resource, much like the National Council on Aging's Benefits Checkup, to help families and older adults access different services. In addition, Arlington, like many other communities, offer a range of services and supports through our Aging and Disability Resource Center and our Aging and Disability Services Division. That can include things like in-home services, social workers and nurses, transportation resources, Medicare counseling through our VICAP program, adult day program, mental health and developmental disability services, nutrition programs, caregiver supports, and volunteer programs, including our very active advocates on the Commission on Aging. But we often hear individuals may say, you know, I'm interested in looking at other options. I want to live in a community. I'm interested in independent living. And so there are different options available for independent living. There are lifestyle communities, as I mentioned before. Sometimes they can start at ages 50 and above, or 55 and above. And they can be communities that are age-based. They offer a wide range of housing options within the community, but also include activities, theaters, gyms, cafeterias, and dining facilities, sort of like a college campus, but you have to be a certain age to live there. There are independent living residences. These are also, some of them may be HUD funded, called sort of our Section 202 housing. That means that these types of communities are age-based, but they're also income guidelines to live in some of these communities. They are independent apartments, complete with their own kitchen, dining room, bathrooms, and some communities may have a resident services coordinator that provides supportive services. In Arlington, our affordable independent living communities are the Carlin, Claridge House, Culpeper Garden, Hunters Park, Sunrise at Bluemont, the Potomac, and the Shenandoah and Woodland Hill. I spoke a little bit about the independent retirement communities. These communities also have the independent kitchen and bath, usually for active older adults who participate in the social activities, and meals and housekeeping are often provided. The difference in some of the communities are that some may have the age and income eligibility, and others may just have the age requirements. Sort of the next level on the continuum of care in terms of housing for older adults would be assisted living. Assisted living can be either a large type of housing community, maybe an apartment building, a high-rise. It could be multi-level, or it could be a smaller kind of home, a residential setting. if in assisted living, care is provided and support services. There's supervision and assistance, and some support with health-related services. So, assisted living may have someone to help would have someone to help with medication management, have care staff available and on site, but the community still tries to maximize the residents' dignity, autonomy, as well as privacy and independence. Oftentimes there may be sort of shared dining experience and meal options. There's lots of activities and programs, and the assisted living residences often encourage family and community involvement. In Virginia, assisted livings are licensed by the Virginia Department of Social Services, and there often provides little state or federal financial assistance. Some communities accept what's called an auxiliary grant in Virginia, and it's a subsidy to help offset the cost of assisted living, but oftentimes assisted living does require a private payment for services, and it can be it can vary across communities. And then the highest level of care in the continuum would be a nursing home. Nursing homes, also known as skilled nursing facilities, or sometimes the acronym SNF, nursing homes provide 24-hour skilled care. This is often for individuals who need that 24-hour kind of round-the-clock care, support, and supervision. Residents generally rely on assistance for nearly all activities of daily living. ADLs that can include things like bathing, dressing, and toileting, so the personal care needs. Because it is skilled care, Medicare will offer payment for up to 100 days. Then oftentimes it will transition to either paid privately or Medicaid payment for services. In Virginia, nursing homes are licensed by the Department of Health, Office of Licensure and Certification, or OLC. And I'd like to thank our Northern Virginia Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program for the resources for our assisted living and nursing home slides. And then I mentioned our continuing care retirement communities, or CCRCs. This basically includes the services that I previously mentioned under the same roof. CCRCs include various levels of assistance that can be independent living, assisted living, nursing home level of care, and in some communities, hospice level of care as well. Traditionally, because there is a higher cost for these types of communities, they are often inaccessible to individuals who have lower income. There also are very limited, or if any, financial assistance or insurance coverage for continuing care retirement communities, many of which have an initial buy-in for the communities, and then offer those various levels of services for the residents. In Virginia, CCRCs are licensed by the State Corporation Commission under the Bureau of Insurance. This slide just provides another overview of the various options of sort of the continuum, nursing home being sort of that top tier of 24-hour level of care, followed by assisted living, that level of supportive wraparound services, but still providing autonomy and some independence for residents. medical and skilled care, those are sort of the highest level of in-home services. Sometimes that may also involve supports that may be sometimes involuntary, and that could be possibly maybe for someone with a cognitive impairment who may not be interested in accepting services, but if there is a power of attorney, sometimes a guardian involved, they can still recognize that the person needs in-home services to help with making sure they take their medications, making sure that they eat, making sure that they're taking care of their personal needs. Home health, home delivered meals, assistance with medications, those are all sort of those activities of daily living, the personal care needs. That could be a home health aide coming in to provide support with those types of services, and then community resources, looking at the different types of home and community-based services that can be provided to help keep the individual safe, keep them independent, provide that support for caregivers, and also address the overall mental health wellness of all who are involved. And then that the sort of the starting point of all of this are those informal supports, the information and referrals, things like attending presentations like this, knowing what resources are available within respective communities, so when the time comes to need those services, you're more informed and aware of what's available and how to access. When we think about aging in place, it's important to think about what are we or what are our loved ones most interested in? If it's maybe adult day programs, is there a need for social interaction? We've seen over this last year and a half the isolation and impact that it has, particularly on our older adult population. And so is there a need for more social interaction, things like adult day, going to 55 plus centers, community centers? Does the family need some respite from caregiving? Is a person unsafe or not able to be alone for extended periods of time? So maybe it's looking at adult day for some of those, if some of those needs are listed. Are you looking for a retirement community? Are you ready to live with people who are of a similar age, or looking for that kind of maintenance-free living? Who knows if we'll get snow this winter, but if you're done with kind of the yard maintenance and snow and clearing that snow out, tired of being, when the HVAC breaks, maintenance-free living, looking at that security, that if something does happen, you're surrounded by others and connected. And then is there a need for assistance with those instrumental activities of daily living? So maybe looking at a retirement community or an independent living residence that could be help and support with the instrumental activities of daily living, or those activities of daily living, more those personal care needs, maybe some nutritional support, some management of the medical needs. Is it time for assisted living? Is there a need for assistance with personal care? Do you or your loved one know what you would do if there's an emergency situation? And if not, if there is a need for help, maybe it could be time to start thinking about what other options might be worth considering. And then finally, for someone who may need that 24-hour supervision, if in-home services is not an option, if there's a need for skilled medical care, is it time to consider a nursing home? These are all very tough decisions, and there is a lot to consider when making any choice. Some of the things that we recommend is thinking about the overall kind of assessment of needs, looking at a person's physical health and appearance. Their how do they present? Are they clean? Are they put together? Does the home look safe and clean? Is there food in the refrigerator? Are they still able to safely drive? Do they often have bruises that they don't remember getting? Is the home cluttered, dirty? Is food expired? Thinking about the person's physical appearance. Mental health and wellness, it's looking at cognitive impairments, quality of life, mental health. We saw mental health really impacted over the last year and a half, and the impact of isolation on mental health. Looking at substance use and the risk that can play on mental health and overall wellness. Financial assessment and kind of stability, looking at economic stability. If we talked about the real estate tax relief program, but for someone who is on fixed income and living in their home and may not have the resources, the financial resources, what options can be available? Sadly, we'll see scammers who will often target older homeowners with offering help with yard work or home repairs and sadly charging them an exorbitant amount of money or using it as a scam to financially exploit them. Looking at the environment, housing stability. Is it safe for the person to live in the home? Do they have heat? Do they have? Is it too hot? Can they get out if there's a fire? Is the home stable? Is it safe? Looking at the accessibility, can someone get in and out of the home? Do they have lots of stairs? Are there modifications that can be made? And then supports. Who are their family supports, friends who can provide support, neighbors? Are they connected with a faith community or one of the villages in their community, somebody to check on them? So looking at each of these areas and conducting what would be called kind of a vulnerability assessment, where are those areas that are of most concern? And is the person open and willing to address that and maybe be open to accepting services around those areas? But if there are red flags, there's also help. Knowing about programs like Adult Protective Services. Anyone can report to Adult Protective Services. You can provide your information. You can file an anonymous report. But if you know an adult age 60 and above, or someone 18 to 59 with a disability, and you have a concern about their risk for abuse, neglect, or exploitation, in Arlington, you can report it locally to our Adult Protective Services team at 703-228-1700, or statewide, you can report to a toll-free hotline at 1-888-832-3858, and both numbers are listed on the slide. There are a number of different ways that we can see elder abuse expressed. There's physical abuse, that's inflicting pain or injury, that can show up as bruises or restraints on somebody's wrists. We can see mental or psychological abuse, and this can be the intentional infliction of mental anguish. This can be verbal assaults, threats, intimidation, it can be humiliation of an individual. Sexual abuse, this would be unwanted sexual activity to the individual. Neglect, this is when a caregiver could neglect providing services to help keep the adult maintained physical and mental wellness. Self-neglect. This is what is most frequently reported, and this can be the failure to provide oneself with the necessities of life. Things like what we see on that Maslow's hierarchy of needs are food, shelter, medical care, reasonable financial management. And then lastly, financial exploitation. This would be illegal, unauthorized, fraudulent use of an adult's money, really. It can be money, assets, property, benefits, and the risk of financial exploitation is one of the areas for red flags for elder abuse. So again, if you know of someone, you witness abuse, neglect, or exploitation of an older adult or an individual with disabilities, anyone can file a report to Adult Protective Services. Adult Protective Services will then conduct an investigation, and the team works very hard to provide services and resources in the least restrictive environment. So always striving to keep the individual safe in the community, but providing support when that transition to a higher level of care is needed. So one of the resources when everyone kind of asks of what's all this going to cost, and so one of the resources that's available is the website at the bottom of this slide. Genworth updates each year the cost of long-term care for each respective community. And in the DC metro area, the cost for a home health aide can vary. Sometimes it's around $24, $25 an hour. Local agencies on aging, local providers may have different kind of scaled costs of services for home health, but it's important to know the different types of range of prices for services. Adult day can vary, but in this area it's around $1,744 per month. Some programs do accept Medicaid for services, and it's always worth reaching out to local providers to learn more about their programs and the various resources to help with cost. 24-hour care is maybe an option to consider. Some home health agencies offer 24-hour or in-home care. This can vary from about $2,300 a week to $9,000 per month. And then there's a live-in caregiver option. This would be providing a sort of separate living area for a caregiver, which could be a little more affordable compared to the cost of 24-hour care. In our region, assisted living can cost around $6,000 per month. This can vary by community. And as I mentioned previously, some assisted living facilities in Virginia will accept the auxiliary grant program. It would depend on the particular community, facility, assisted living facility, and there would also be an eligibility requirement for the individual to qualify for auxiliary grant. And then finally, nursing home costs are listed there. Obviously, nursing homes are the highest cost because they are the highest level of care in the home. I'm sorry, in the nursing home, because it's 24 hours of care and services. And nursing home, often one of the primary payers for nursing home services is the Medicaid program. So I know that was a lot of information to cover. I'm sure there will be questions that I would be happy to answer. But one of the key takeaways is just learning the resources that are available, having the information, reaching out to your local agencies on aging, visiting the National Council on Aging benefits checkup, so that you are informed and aware of what resources are available to help you make the best decision for you or your loved one when the time comes to make that choice. Thank you.
I forgot to unmute myself. Thank you, Rachel. So I know that in your role, you encounter some common questions, and I'd like to ask you a few of those now.
Sure.
So if I want to renovate my home to age in place, where and how do I start?
That's a great question, and I think it really starts with doing your research. I think the AARP's Home Fit Guide is a fantastic resource. You can visit the online website. You can order a copy of that publication, but it provides different ways to make your home safe and comfortable through those universal design features. So all ages, all stages. So whether you need it for yourself or maybe for a grandchild that's coming to visit, and everyone in between. It's thinking about spaces like bathrooms, hallways and stairs, the different access points, and thinking about it in terms of those universal design concepts. The no-step entries, the ramps, grab bars, lighting, looking at the carpets and the risk they may pose to falls, carpets and rugs. One of the great resources that our Arlington's Commission on Aging created was a universal design video, and looking at the different rooms in your home and how to add those features that help make it more accessible and safe. It's researching and connecting with organizations like Rebuilding Together, and learning more about their the home renovations and modifications that are available. It's knowing what types of funding may be available and the resources that can assist you with the cost of the home modifications. It's looking at, in Virginia, it's the Virginia Livable Homes Tax Credit. This program is designed to help improve accessibility and visitability in residential units by providing those state tax credits for the purchase of these types of modifications that make them more accessible. So there's a lot of resources that are available, and I think it would start with doing some research to know what's available and what would best help you in your personal situation.
Wonderful. So when is living alone no longer a good idea?
So I think this is one of the hardest questions to answer, but it starts with being honest. It's being honest with ourselves, and having these conversations frequently with our loved ones. But it starts with being honest. Have you considered and explored all options for aging in place, aging in the community? I mentioned the National Council on Aging's benefits checkup. That's a great resource to start kind of initiating the answer to this question. It's connecting with your local agencies on aging, attending outreach presentations. Positive Aging has been offering some almost daily online and virtual programs about different topics. So it's educating yourself about what's available, connecting with your local village. It's assessing risk. Looking at things like, have there been accidents, more frequent accidents that have happened recently? Falls. Is it a challenge to manage some of those instrumental activities of daily living and personal care needs like bathing and cooking? Is isolation a concern, and loneliness? That's not a normal thing that needs to happen as we get older. And so thinking about, is it time to consider a different option? What supports are available from friends, from family, from neighbors? And is that support adequate and appropriate? We often see caregiver burnout and risk, and oftentimes it's tied to a loved one who does not want to accept services. So thinking about not just are there supports, but is this support adequate? Is it appropriate? I think it's having conversations. It's being open to have these conversations with our loved ones of what we desire, but also knowing and understanding what's important to your loved one, what matters most to them, and how can we honor their wishes. And then I think if the conversations are really difficult or someone does not want to have them, sometimes it helps to talk with a social worker, a geriatric care manager, someone to sort of be an outside party who can help facilitate these discussions and conversations, and also provide a home and safety check, and provide sort of that situational awareness for all who are involved. So there are lots of things to consider, but I think it really starts with having those honest and open conversations.
How do I choose the best housing option for myself or my loved one?
I think choosing the best housing option includes kind of that honest assessment and conversation around what's most important. But it also is important to know what are the options available to help you choose the best option for yourself or your loved one. If they live in the Northern Virginia area, do they want to stay here? If for caregivers who live out of state, we often get this question of, I want to move mom or dad across the country, but they don't want to move. And so I think it's again having those conversations about honest assessments. What are you most interested in? What is important to your loved one? And so I think it's understanding the different options, and knowing what are the options that can accommodate my or my loved one's needs, but also preferences. And I know that the slide that I shared with some of the costs, it's also knowing about budget and resources, and what are the options that will accommodate my needs, my preferences, as well as my budget for myself or my loved one. And then again, just going back to recognizing and acknowledging what matters most, what's most important, and knowing what those resources and options are, so that you're informed to make the best choice.
All right. And last but not least, what if I can no longer afford to live in my own home?
So this is a tough one, and I know with the cost of living, especially in our Northern Virginia area, this can be a challenge. But again, I think it's exploring the different options that are available, and based on your personal needs and preferences, looking at those various subsidy programs like the real estate tax relief program through your local government or maybe housing office. It could be looking at affordable housing or affordable independent living options. Maybe downsizing from a home to a condo or to a different type of living environment. If you're in assisted living, is auxiliary grant an option? Is that something that the community participates in, and would you qualify? Other things that we're starting to see more frequently are roommates and looking at a home share option. There's an organization called Silver Nest that provides that platform for home sharing for individuals. Would be you be open to having a roommate or having a shared sort of Golden Girls style living environment to help offset the cost and also provide you with a housing with a roommate possibly. So I think it's looking at what the different options are available, what would meet your needs and preferences, but it is starting to having that plan and knowing what the resources are, and connecting with your local community and advocates to address some of those questions. But it is an evolving process, and I encourage everyone to just inform and educate yourself about the options, about the resources, but also connect with groups like the Commission on Aging. Arlington's commission is very active. We're very fortunate to have such a great group of advocates who advocate on behalf of older adults and caregivers in our community, advocating for things like affordable assisted living, a range of supportive services to help older adults age in place, and advocate for policy changes so that we continue to be a more age-friendly and inclusive community for everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Rachel, you've provided us with so much useful information. And if you're watching this now, be sure to share it with others who you think might benefit. The Expo is here for the sole purpose of helping people find their way through these sorts of life and housing need changes. And we hope you found this session helpful. Again, Rachel, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Take care.